It has been a remarkable run here on what had been considered sort of an evolutionary. I mean, I don't know what you thought of the iPhone Air in terms of spurring this sort of response.
Well, if you believe that Apple hasn't innovated in a long time, and if you believe Apple's all about design and all about a product and all about an event, when I parked my City bike, by the way, I'm Long City. It was a City bike I parked this morning. I saw it by the Apple store, and I saw a huge line. I haven't seen this in forever.
Yeah.
And I was like, are they really here for the new iPhone? And in fact, they are. And it's just amazing to me that the analyst community who follows this stuff, and we get a lot of different channel checks to determine, we look at component parts, we look at different pieces of the shipment chain, and to be surprised and to have to upgrade today. But my thesis on Apple is not that I'm expecting runaway growth, but I think that we've priced in zero in terms of a refresh cycle about this phone. So, yes, a better battery. Yes, a better camera. Yes, a sleeker, body, chassis, whatever we're calling this. By the way, yeah, speaking of the segment we just had. So I think that this follow-through in Apple continues to be very bullish, especially in a backdrop where people are necessarily have not priced a lot into Apple.
Right. I mean, to J.P. Morgan's point, is this enough to get us to the next real innovation, which would be the foldable phone, and to get us to the first meaningful offering in terms of AI? And so if this can be enough of a bridge, then can you chart that stock higher?
So that's innovation. I agree with all that stuff. I'll also say this. There was 3 times normal volume today. Some options expiry that I'm sure sort of spurred volume and had that late ramp in this stock and a bunch of other stocks. So there's that out there. I think 260 was the prior high back in December. There's obviously a bullseye on that. But you can talk about innovation, which I get. It's a company that's trading close to 31 times next year's numbers, that has maybe 10% earnings growth, maybe 6%-ish revenue growth, with margins that have been flatlining, maybe starting to move up a modest amount. So it's an expensive stock. Now, you could say they deserve to be expensive, and that's historically been true. But you have to understand you're absolutely paying up for Apple here.
What did you see, Michael, on the options front? Perfect night for you to be here. And do you think it's worth paying up for Apple?
Well, first of all, we saw more than 3 times the average daily options volume in Apple today. It traded more than 2 million calls alone, actually. So it was the second busiest stock, actually, in the options market. I'm kind of with Guy here, though. I mean, if you think about it this way, so 31 times forward versus 25-ish, maybe a little bit more for the S&P. And the thing is that the S&P's compound annual growth rate on the revenue side is actually higher than Apple's is. It's just hard to see why you would pay, such a premium. It's a great company, generates massive amounts of free cash flow. That's great. The buyback story can't be quite as compelling just simply because of the size of the company now. And I'm obviously looking forward to, better product on the AI side, as we are from not just Apple, but from Alphabet and others. But you need to see actually a reason to reach out and buy this one instead of the market broadly, and I don't see that.
I mean, the point is that we're anticipating, right? And so we're anticipating what, Tim? What is in the stock now, and what is still not yet in the stock?
Well, because markets are all-time highs at an all-time forward multiple for the S&P and for the NASDAQ effectively. I mean, you can go back to pets.com days, but I mean, really, we're talking about a market that's expensive. Apple's now, if you want to say it's expensive, that's fine. I get it for the kind of growth you're getting, but then it's been expensive for 5 years. Why when it was expensive 6 months ago, wasn't it sold off? Why wasn't it destroyed during April, during Liberation Day? So you can't tell me that the stock is too expensive because the market's put a multiple on it for a long time that's north of 30. This is a company with 2.3 billion or more in terms of an installed base that's going to refresh. They're going to refresh at some point. They're not going to switch away from an iPhone. So if you're serving up AI and you're serving up services that have to grow with AI, and part of I think the underlying story is that the developers and the opening up the Apple developers to the Apple ecosystem around AI is something we still haven't seen. That's my argument also around services. But I'll just get back to where we're not in Apple. We're not in in an AI valuation here. We're not in a company that's gotten anything out of AI. They've had headwinds. They've had headwinds from China. So, again, I'm not going to tell you 20% growth is what we have here, but it would be crazy to be selling Apple here, especially as we are unlocking a refresh cycle that looks to be better than expected.
Yeah, in terms of the AI offering, that Google antitrust case really unlocked a possibility for Apple in terms of an AI offering.
And you saw the way it traded on the back of it, and Tim is right. I mean, Apple's been expensive now for probably the better part of 4 or 5 years. What's fascinating to me, it was a growth stock. It was trading at a 13 multiple. It was trading at a value stock valuation. Now that it's become a value stock, it's trading at a growth stock valuation. And maybe that makes sense, and maybe you should pay up for a name like Apple, and maybe because it's in 400 and something ETFs and the passive world works for Apple. All those things are definitely tailwinds, but we have seen downdrafts before in the name, so it's not impervious to market sell-offs. With that said, given where we're trading, given where the market is right now, that level that we saw in December is probably in the crosshairs.
And I think we have seen rotation within the biggest companies in the world, and we've seen a resurgent Apple be part of a rotation. Do we think the fundamentals in Tesla are so extraordinary here?